The champagne glass shattered first. Then came the gasps. Malik Carter, 7 years old, hoodie 2 sizes too big, shoes held together with electrical tape, stood frozen in the center of the Ritz-Carlton ballroom as 300 of Atlanta's wealthiest guests turned to stare. His small hand had bumped the tray. Just bumped it. Now crystal shards glittered across Italian marble like broken stars, and sparkling water pooled around the polished Oxford shoes of Grant Holloway, tech billionaire, philanthropist, tonight's guest of honor. Grant looked down. Not at the mess. At Malik. The way you'd look at gum on a sidewalk. What is this? Grant's voice was sharp, controlled. The kind of voice used to being obeyed. Who let him in? The ballroom went silent. Phones came out. Malik's lips trembled. He'd practiced this moment 100 times in the mirror of the hospital bathroom. His mother's hand squeezing his before he left. Her voice barely a whisper, tell him. Make him remember. Please, Malik managed. His voice cracked. I just need security. Grant didn't even let him finish. 2 men in black suits materialized from the edges of the room. Malik's heart hammered. No. Not yet. Not before he could say it. My mom is dying, he blurted out, louder now, desperate. She's at Grady Hospital and they said only you can help and I have proof. Laughter. Actual laughter. It started with one woman near the ice sculpture, spread like wildfire through the crowd. Grant's smile was thin, practiced. The smile that had closed billion-dollar deals and convinced senators and graced magazine covers. A proof. He turned to the crowd, playing to them now. This child claims he has proof. More laughter. Malik felt his face burn. One of the security guards grabbed his arm, not rough yet, but firm. Warning. Please, Malik whispered, but his voice was swallowed by the murmuring crowd. Someone near the bar muttered, this is a charity gala, not a homeless shelter. Someone else, how did he even get in? Grant leaned down, close enough that only Malik could hear what came next. Listen carefully, he said, voice low and cold as winter. No one like you has anything I want. Do you understand? Nothing. The words hit like fists. Malik's hands shook as he reached into his hoodie pocket. The envelope. He had to show them the envelope. But the security guard's grip tightened. Sir, we'll handle this, one of them said to Grant. Quickly, Grant replied, already turning away. We have a schedule. Malik's feet slid across the marble as they pulled him toward the exit. His fingers closed around the envelope, manila, bent at the corners, his mother's handwriting on the front. Wait, he screamed. You promised her. You said if she ever needed help. Grant stopped. For just a second, his shoulders tensed. Then he kept walking. The crowd parted for him like water. Malik was crying now, not loud, just desperate, hopeless tears that blurred the crystal chandeliers overhead into starbursts of light. She only has hours. His voice broke completely. Please. Just look at it. But no one was listening anymore. The security guards lifted him off the floor, his shoes dangling in the air like a puppet's, and headed for the gold-plated doors. The envelope slipped from his fingers. Fell. Slid across the marble. And stopped at the feet of a woman in a silver gown. Naomi Holloway. Grant's wife. She bent down slowly, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Picked it up. And froze. Because she recognized the handwriting on the front. Most people walked right past that boy. They laughed. They filmed. They did nothing. If you think you'd do different, prove it. Stay until the end. Because what happens next will test every single person in that room, including you. 12 hours earlier. Malik had stood in the flickering fluorescent light of Grady Memorial Hospital's 4th-floor hallway, staring at the paper in his hand. Not a paper. An invitation. Crumpled, water-stained at the edges, but real. The Holloway Foundation Annual Charity Gala Saturday, 7 p.m. Ritz-Carlton, Atlanta. His mother had pressed it into his palm that morning, her fingers cold and thin as bird bones. He'll be there, she'd whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the beeping machines. Grant Holloway. Tell him I kept my promise. Tell him you're his son. Malik had nodded, throat tight. He didn't understand all of it. Not really. He knew his mother was sick. Had been sick for months. He knew they'd moved 6 times this year because they couldn't pay rent. He knew she worked 2 jobs until she collapsed at the second one and an ambulance brought her here. And he knew that when the doctors said she needed a transplant, kidney, they called it, they also said it would cost more money than Malik had ever seen in his life. But there was a list, his mother explained. A donor list. And Grant Holloway owned the hospital network. He funded the transplant program. He could move her name up. He could save her. If he wanted to. Why would he help us? Malik had asked. His mother's eyes filled with tears she wouldn't let fall. Because 7 years ago, she said slowly, he promised he would. She wouldn't say more. Just pressed the invitation into his hand. Now Malik stood in front of the Ritz-Carlton, watching black cars pull up, watching men in suits and women in gowns step out like they were walking on air. He didn't belong here. Everyone who looked at him knew it. The doorman's eyes lingered a beat too long. A woman pulling her child closer as she passed. Malik's sneakers squeaked on the polished stone steps. Inside his hoodie pocket, next to the invitation, was something else. A hospital bracelet. His mother's. And a sealed envelope she'd given him with shaking hands. Don't open it, she'd said. Just give it to him. He'll understand. Malik hadn't opened it. But he'd held it up to the light. Through the thin paper, he could see official seals. Words like paternity and medical records. He didn't know what paternity meant. But he knew his mother never lied. So he pushed through the gold-plated doors. Walked past security who assumed he was with someone. Slipped into the ballroom where crystal chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks and the air smelled like expensive perfume and fresh roses. And he'd found Grant Holloway. Standing near the center of the room. Tall. Confident. Smiling. Surrounded by people who laughed at his jokes and leaned in when he spoke. Malik had taken a breath. Stepped forward. And bumped the waiter's tray. Now here he was. Being dragged toward the exit. Watching the envelope slide across the floor. Watching Grant's wife pick it up. And for the first time since he'd arrived, someone wasn't looking at him like trash. Naomi Holloway was staring at the envelope. Her face had gone pale. Her lips moved silently, reading something written on the front. Then she looked up. Not at her husband. At Malik. And her eyes asked a question she didn't say aloud. Is this real? Grant Holloway's life had been built on control. At 46, he turned a software startup into a billion-dollar empire. He sat on the boards of 3 hospitals, 2 universities, and a presidential advisory committee. Forbes called him a visionary. TED invited him to speak. Churches asked him to donate. Control meant knowing what would happen before it did. Control meant owning the room. And tonight, in front of Atlanta's elite, a child in a torn hoodie had just tried to take that control away. Grant's jaw tightened as he watched security lift the boy toward the exit. Good. Problem solved. Then he saw Naomi. His wife. Standing 15 feet away, holding something in her hand. An envelope. Her face had drained of color. Grant's stomach dropped. No. Not here. Not now. He crossed the room in 4 long strides, his polished shoes clicking against marble, his smile locked in place for the watching crowd. Naomi, he said quietly. Give me that. She didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly. Where did this come from? Her voice was barely audible. It doesn't matter. It has my name on it. She looked up at him. And hers. Grant's pulse spiked. The envelope was addressed in handwriting he hadn't seen in 7 years. To Naomi Holloway from Ariel Carter. He reached for it. Naomi stepped back. Who is Ariel Carter? She asked. The crowd was watching now. Not openly. But watching. Grant could feel eyes on them, guests pretending to sip champagne while leaning closer. This was how reputations collapsed. Not in explosions. In whispers. A former employee, Grant said smoothly. From years ago. This is clearly some kind of scam. Then why do you look scared? I don't, you do. Naomi's voice was steady now. Sharp. I've been married to you for 12 years, Grant. I know what scared looks like on you. Behind them, the security guards had stopped near the exit. The boy was struggling. Not violently. Just desperately. "She's dying." Malik screamed. "My mom is dying and you won't even look at me." Guests turned. Phones lifted higher. Someone was definitely recording now. Grant felt control slipping through his fingers like sand. "Naomi," he said quietly. "Not here." But she was already opening the envelope. Her hands shook as she pulled out the contents. A single sheet of paper. Official letterhead, Atlanta Medical Diagnostics. Naomi's eyes scanned the page. Then stopped. Her breath caught. "This is a DNA test," she whispered. Grant said nothing. "It says," her voice broke. "It says that boy is your son." The words hung in the air like smoke. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then the room erupted. Not in sound. In motion. Guests stepping closer. Phones rising. Flashes going off. Grant's carefully constructed world, the one built on keynote speeches and charity galas and Forbes profiles, began to crack. "That's not possible," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Naomi stared at him. "7 years ago," she said slowly, piecing it together. "When you were in Austin for that conference. You were gone for 2 months. Building the company, you had an affair." It wasn't a question. Grant's silence was answer enough. Across the room, Malik had stopped struggling. He was watching them now. Tears streaming down his face. Waiting. Naomi turned toward the boy, then back to Grant. "How long have you known?" Her voice was ice. "Naomi, how long?" Grant's throat tightened. "Since he was born." The confession dropped like a stone. Naomi's eyes widened. "You've known for 7 years that you have a son and you left him in poverty?" "I paid." "You paid?" Her voice rose. "You paid someone to make your child disappear." It was complicated. "He's 7 years old." Naomi's composure shattered. "He's a child, Grant. Your child. And you just told security to throw him out like garbage." The crowd had formed a loose circle now. Watching. Recording. Witnessing. This wasn't a gala anymore. It was a trial. And Grant Holloway was losing. Malik's small voice cut through the chaos. "I just need help. Please. She doesn't have much time." Naomi looked at the boy. Then at her husband. And made a decision. She walked toward Malik. Knelt down in her silver gown on the marble floor. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Malik." "Malik, I'm so sorry." Her voice cracked. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Behind her, Grant stood frozen. His empire crumbling in real time. And then, Malik collapsed. His legs gave out. His eyes rolled back. He hit the floor with a sound that made everyone gasp. "Someone call 911. Naomi screamed. But by then, sirens were already wailing outside. Because someone in that crowd had already called. Not for Malik. For the scandal. You're watching a man's entire life unravel because of one lie. One secret. One moment he thought he could control. Still think you know how this ends? Stay. Because what Grant does in the next 4 minutes will decide whether he's remembered as a monster or something worse. Grady Memorial Hospital, 4th floor, room 447. The machines beeped in rhythm, steady, mechanical, relentless. Ariel Carter's eyes were closed. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. The dialysis machine hummed beside her bed, doing the work her kidneys could no longer do. On the monitor above her head, numbers flickered. Blood pressure, 88/50 seconds. Heart rate, 112. Oxygen saturation, 91%. All trending down. A nurse named Carmen stood at the foot of the bed, checking the chart with growing concern. "How long has she been non-responsive?" Dr. Patel asked, stepping into the room. 20 minutes, Carmen said. "Blood pressure's dropping. I've tried to stabilize her but, where's her son?" Carmen's face fell. "He left hours ago. Said he had to talk to someone. Someone who could help." Dr. Patel looked at the monitors. Then at Ariel. Then at the clock on the wall, 9:47 p.m. We need to intubate, he said quietly. Prep her. Carmen hesitated. Doctor, if we intubate her now, without the transplant, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. They both knew what it meant. Once Ariel went on a ventilator in her condition, she wasn't coming off. Not without a miracle. Not without a kidney. Not without someone powerful enough to move her name to the top of a very long list. Dr. Patel picked up the phone on the wall. Started dialing the transplant coordinator. And 7 miles away, Malik hit the floor. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom descended into chaos. Guests scattered. Someone screamed. Naomi dropped to her knees beside Malik's small body, her silver gown pooling around her like liquid mercury. Malik! She touched his face, cold, clammy. Malik, can you hear me? No response. His eyes were half open, unfocused. His breathing shallow and fast. He's going into shock, someone said. Grant stood 10 feet away, frozen. He'd seen shock before. On battlefields during his brief military stint after college. But this was different. This wasn't a stranger. This was his son. The word felt foreign in his mind. Son. He'd paid Ariel Carter $200,000 7 years ago to make this exact moment impossible. A lump sum. A signed NDA. A promise she'd never contact him again. He'd told himself it was the right thing. That a child needed stability, not a father who'd never wanted to be one. That Ariel had agreed. But standing here now, watching paramedics rush through the gold-plated doors, watching his wife cradle a boy whose eyes looked exactly like his own, Grant realized he'd been lying to himself for 7 years. Move back, please. A paramedic knelt beside Malik, checking his pulse. How long has he been unconscious? 30 seconds, Naomi said. Maybe a minute. I don't know. Is he epileptic? Diabetic? I don't know. Naomi's voice cracked. I just met him. The paramedic looked up, confused. Then saw Grant. Recognition flickered across his face. Everyone in Atlanta knew Grant Holloway. Sir, is this your son? The question hung in the air. 300 people waiting for an answer. Phones recording. Cameras flashing. Grant opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The paramedic's expression hardened. We need medical history. Now. Does he have any conditions we should know about? Grant's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. The words tasted like ash. You don't know? The paramedic's tone sharpened. You're his father and you don't know? Silence. Naomi looked up at Grant, her eyes filled with something worse than anger. Disappointment. He came here for help, she said quietly. His mother is dying and he came here because he thought you'd do the right thing. Grant flinched. And you called security. The accusation landed like a punch. Malik's eyes fluttered. His lips moved, barely audible. Mom, the paramedic moved fast. We need to transport him now. He's crashing. They lifted Malik onto a stretcher. Secured the straps. Started toward the exit. Naomi stood. I'm coming with him. I'm coming. Her voice left no room for argument. She followed the paramedics toward the doors, then stopped. Turned back. Looked at Grant one last time. If he dies, she said, voice cold and clear, you will lose everything. Do you understand? Everything. Then she was gone. The ballroom fell silent. Grant stood alone in the center of the room. Surrounded by guests who'd come to celebrate him. Who'd applauded his speeches about giving back. About family values. About responsibility. Now they stared. Judging. Recording. Witnessing the moment Grant Holloway's carefully constructed image shattered completely. His phone buzzed. A text from his publicist, we need to talk. Now. Another from his lawyer, don't say anything. To anyone. A third from his board chairman, what the hell is going on? Grant looked down at the messages. Then at the spot where Malik had collapsed. At the small wet patch on the marble where the boy's tears had fallen. And for the first time in 20 years, Grant Holloway didn't know what to do. Control had left the building. And all that remained was the truth. Grady Memorial Hospital, room 447. The machines beeped faster now. Ariel's blood pressure, 82/48. Dr. Patel stood at the door, phone pressed to his ear. I need an emergency transplant coordinator, he said. Now. A pause. I know it's late. I know the list is long. But this patient has hours, not days. Another pause. His face darkened. Then find someone who can authorize it. He hung up. Looked at Carmen. Call the chaplain, he said quietly. Carmen's hand trembled as she reached for the phone. Because they both knew what that meant. When you called the chaplain in the middle of the night, you were preparing someone to say goodbye. 2 lives hanging by a thread. One choice that could save or destroy them both. If you think money solves everything, you're about to learn something Grant Holloway is just now realizing. Some debts can't be paid with a check. Keep watching. The next 60 seconds will decide everything. The ambulance doors slammed shut. Sirens wailed into the Atlanta night. Inside, Naomi held Malik's small hand while a paramedic worked fast, checking vitals, hooking up and barking instructions into a radio. 7-year-old male, unresponsive, vitals unstable. Possible stress-induced cardiac event. ETA 4 minutes. Malik's eyes fluttered open. Unfocused. Searching. Mom, he whispered. Naomi's throat tightened. She's waiting for you, sweetheart. We're going to her right now. Is he coming? The question hung in the cramped space. Naomi didn't answer. Because she didn't know. Back at the Ritz-Carlton, Grant stood motionless. The guests had stopped pretending. They stared openly now. Judging. A woman in diamonds whispered to her husband, I always knew something was off about him. A man in a tuxedo shook his head, and we gave him an award tonight. Grant's publicist, Trevor, materialized at his elbow, face pale, phone pressed to his ear. We need to leave, Trevor hissed. Now. Before this becomes, it already is, Grant said flatly. Trevor's eyes widened as he looked around the room. At least 50 phones were out. Recording. Streaming. By tomorrow morning, this would be everywhere. Grant, listen to me. Trevor's voice dropped to an urgent whisper. We can spin this. A misunderstanding. A paternity fraud case. We say the mother was unstable, that you were extorted, she wasn't unstable. Trevor froze. What? Grant's voice was hollow. Ariel wasn't unstable. She was just desperate. The confession landed heavy. Trevor stepped back, his expression shifting from panic to something closer to horror. You knew, he said slowly. You've known this whole time. Grant said nothing. Jesus Christ. Trevor ran a hand through his hair. How much did you pay her? 200,000. And an NDA? Grant nodded. Trevor's face went white. Grant, if that NDA surfaces, if anyone finds out you paid to hide your own child, I know. You won't just lose your reputation. You'll lose the foundation. The board seats. Everything. I know. Then why are you just standing here? Grant looked at the spot where Malik had collapsed. At the small wet stain on the marble. Because I don't know what else to do. For the first time in 12 years of working together, Trevor had no response. Grant's phone buzzed again. Not a text this time. A call. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Holloway. A woman's voice, professional but strained. This is Dr. Patel from Grady Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about Ariel Carter. Grant's chest tightened. She's critical. We need to intubate within the hour or we'll lose her. A pause. Sir, I understand there's a complicated situation. But Ms. Carter listed you as her emergency contact 7 years ago. She never changed it. The words hit like a freight train. Emergency contact. 7 years. She'd kept him listed even after he'd paid her to disappear. Even after he'd made her sign papers promising she'd never reach out. Even after he'd told her, standing in a hotel room in Austin with a briefcase full of cash, that he couldn't be a father. She'd kept him as her emergency contact. Just in case. Mr. Holloway. Dr. Patel's voice sharpened. Are you there? Yes. We need consent for the intubation. And? The doctor hesitated. Sir, there's something else. Ms. Carter has a rare blood type. AB negative. The transplant list for her blood type is extremely long. Without intervention, even if we intubate her tonight, she has maybe 72 hours. What kind of intervention? The kind that requires someone with significant influence over hospital administration and transplant allocation. Dr. Patel's meaning was clear. Someone like you. Silence. Grant looked around the ballroom. At the guests who'd celebrated him an hour ago. At the cameras still recording. At the empty space where his wife had been standing before she left with his son. I'm on my way, he said. He hung up. Turned to Trevor. Call my lawyer. Tell him to draft paperwork transferring my voting shares in the foundation to Naomi. Effective immediately. Trevor's jaw dropped. Grant, call him. Now. You're giving up control of your own foundation. I'm giving up everything. Grant's voice was cold, certain. Liquidate the offshore accounts. The real estate holdings. All of it. That's over $400 million, I don't care. Trevor stared at him like he'd gone insane. What are you doing? Grant headed for the exit. Stopped at the door. Looked back one last time at the ballroom that had been built to honor him. What I should have done 7 years ago. Grady Memorial Hospital, emergency entrance. The ambulance screeched to a halt. Doors flew open. Paramedics wheeled Malik inside on a stretcher, Naomi running alongside. We need a pediatric trauma bay, the lead paramedic shouted. Nurses converged. Dr. Patel appeared from a doorway, took one look at Malik, then at Naomi. You're with him? Yes. Family? Naomi hesitated for only a second. Yes, she said firmly. I'm family. Dr. Patel nodded. 4th floor. Room 447. His mother is there. Naomi's breath caught. Is she, barely, but conscious? She's been asking for him. They rushed Malik down the hallway. Into an elevator. Up 4 floors. The doors opened onto a quieter corridor, intensive care. Room 447 was at the end. The door was open. Inside, Ariel Carter lay in bed, oxygen mask fogging with each shallow breath, eyes closed. The nurse, Carmen, looked up as they wheeled Malik in. Is that? Her eyes widened. Oh my God, is that her son? Yes, Naomi said. Can we bring him close to her? Carmen nodded quickly, rolling Ariel's bed slightly to make room for the stretcher. They positioned Malik beside his mother. His small hand reached out, fingers trembling. Found hers. Ariel's eyes opened. Focused on Malik. And filled with tears. Baby, she whispered behind the oxygen mask. You came back. I found him, Malik said weakly. I found him. Ariel's gaze shifted past her son. To the woman standing in the doorway in a silver gown. You're Naomi, Ariel said softly. Naomi froze. How did you? I've seen your picture. In magazines. At his office. Ariel's voice was barely audible. I'm sorry. For all of this. I never wanted. Don't, Naomi said, stepping forward. Don't apologize. None of this is your fault. Ariel's tears fell freely now. I tried to do it alone. I really did. But when I got sick, when the bills started piling up and I couldn't work anymore, her voice broke. I had no one else to ask. Naomi knelt beside the bed. Took Ariel's other hand. You don't have to explain, she said gently. You were protecting your son. That's what mothers do. Behind them, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heavy. Quick. Purposeful. Grant Holloway appeared in the doorway. Hair disheveled. Tie loosened. Eyes red. He looked at Ariel. Then at Malik. Then at his wife. I'm sorry, he said. The words sounded foreign in his mouth. Like a language he'd never learned to speak. A man who built an empire on control just gave up everything in 60 seconds. Would you have done it? Or would you have protected what you built? Comment now, because what happens next depends on whether you believe people can actually change. No one spoke. The machines beeped steadily in the silence. Grant stood in the doorway of room 447, feeling smaller than he ever had in boardrooms or on stages or in meetings with senators. Naomi looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. Not anger. Not forgiveness. Something harder to name. "Did you mean it?" she asked quietly. "Mean what?" "The apology." Grant's throat tightened. "Yes." "Then prove it." The challenge hung in the air. Grant stepped into the room. Approached the bed slowly, like approaching something fragile. Ariel watched him through half-closed eyes, oxygen mask fogging with each breath. "Grant," she whispered. He flinched at the sound of his name in her voice. It had been 7 years since he'd heard it. 7 years since that hotel room in Austin. Since the briefcase full of cash. Since the end day he'd made her sign at 2 a.m. while she was 6 months pregnant and terrified. "I should have helped you," he said. His voice cracked. "I should have been there." Ariel's eyes filled with tears. "You were scared." "That's not an excuse." "No," she agreed softly. "It's not." Malik stirred on the stretcher beside her, his small hand still gripping hers. Grant looked at his son, really looked at him, for the first time. The boy had his eyes. The same dark brown, almost black. The same shape. Even the same small scar above the left eyebrow that Grant had gotten falling off a bike when he was 8. How had he not seen it before? How had he looked at this child in the ballroom and felt nothing? "He looks like you," Naomi said quietly, as if reading his thoughts. Grant nodded, not trusting his voice. Dr. Patel appeared in the doorway, chart in hand. "Mr. Holloway," he said. "We need to talk about next steps." Grant turned. "What do you need?" "For Ms. Carter? A miracle." Dr. Patel's expression was grim. "Her kidney function is at 8%. We're keeping her stable with dialysis, but it's not sustainable. She needs a transplant within 72 hours or." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. "What about the donor list?" Grant asked. "There are 63 people ahead of her for her blood type. Even with emergency priority status, we're looking at weeks. Maybe months. Then move her up." Dr. Patel's eyebrows rose. "Mr. Holloway, I can't just." "Yes, you can." Grant's voice was firm now, the voice he used in boardrooms. "I fund this transplant program. I sit on the hospital board. I can make one call and have her moved to the top of that list by morning." "Grant," Naomi said softly. "You can't just watch me." He pulled out his phone. Scrolled to a contact, * Richard Chen, transplant coordinator, regional director star. Hit call. It rang twice. "Grant." Richard's voice was confused. "It's almost 11. Is everything? I need a favor," Grant said. "A big one." He explained. The room. The patient. The urgency. Richard was silent for a long moment. "Grant," he said finally, carefully. "What you're asking me to do is ethically complicated. I know. If it gets out that we're prioritizing someone because of your personal connection, it won't. You can't guarantee that. Then I'll take the fall." Grant's voice was steady. "Publicly. I'll say I pressured you. I'll resign from the board. Whatever it takes." Another pause. "You're serious?" "Completely." Richard exhaled slowly. "There's a kidney. Came in tonight from a car accident victim in Macon. AB negative. It was allocated to a patient in Savannah, but is stable enough to wait. I can redirect it here." Grant's chest loosened slightly. "How fast?" "Surgical team can be prepped in 2 hours. We'd operate at dawn." "Do it." "Grant, please, Richard. I'm begging you." The word felt foreign. Grant Holloway didn't beg. But here he was. Richard was quiet for a long moment. "All right," he said finally. "But Grant? After this, you and I are done. I can't be associated with this kind of decision-making." "I understand." Grant hung up. Looked at Ariel. "There's a kidney," he said. "Surgery at dawn." Ariel's eyes widened. Fresh tears spilled over. "How? Don't ask." Naomi stepped forward. "Grant, what did you just do?" He met her eyes. What I should have done 7 years ago. Malik stirred, his voice small and groggy. Is Mama going to be okay? Grant looked at his son. And for the first time in 7 years, told him the truth. I'm going to make sure she is. He just broke every rule he ever believed in. Risked his career. His reputation. Everything. But is it enough? Is one night of sacrifice supposed to erase 7 years of abandonment? You tell me. 3:47 a.m. Grant sat in the hospital waiting room, still wearing his tuxedo from the gala. The bow tie hung loose around his neck. Jacket discarded on the chair beside him. His phone buzzed constantly. Texts. Calls. Emails. All asking the same questions. Asterisk, is it true? Asterisk, asterisk, did you really have a secret son? Asterisk, asterisk, are you resigning from the foundation? Asterisk, he ignored them all. Across the room, Naomi sat with a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. They hadn't spoken in 2 hours. Not since the surgical team wheeled Ariel into the operating room. Not since Malik, sedated now, sleeping in a recovery room, had whispered thank you before his eyes closed. The silence between them was heavy. Not angry. Just broken. I filed the paperwork, Grant said finally. Naomi looked up. What paperwork? Transferring my shares in the foundation. To you. It's done. Her eyes widened. Grant, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. He met her gaze. You're a better person than I am. The foundation will do more good in your hands. That's not. She stopped. Took a breath. That doesn't fix what you did. I know. You lied to me for 7 years. I know. You have a child, Grant. A 7-year-old son who's been living in poverty while her voice cracked. While we took vacations in Europe and bought a second house and threw parties. Grant said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. She was right. I don't know if I can forgive you, Naomi said quietly. I don't expect you to. Good. She looked away. Because I don't know if I will. They sat in silence again. Minutes passed. Then Dr. Patel emerged from the surgical wing, still in scrubs, mask pulled down. Grant and Naomi stood simultaneously. How is she? Grant asked. Dr. Patel's expression was unreadable. The surgery went well. The kidney is functioning. We'll know more in the next 24 hours, but, he paused. She's got a fighting chance. Grant felt his knees weaken. Can we see her? Not yet. She's in recovery. But your son, Malik, is awake. Asking for his mother. Tell him she's okay, Naomi said quickly. Please. Tell him she's going to be okay. Dr. Patel nodded. Started to leave. Then stopped. Turned back. Mr. Holloway. His voice was careful. What you did tonight, calling in favors, moving her up the list, it saved her life. But it also put my career at risk. And yours. Grant met his eyes. I know. Was it worth it? Grant thought about Malik. About the way the boy had looked at him in the ballroom. With hope. With trust. Before Grant crushed it. Yes, he said. It was worth it. Dr. Patel studied him for a long moment. Then nodded. And left. 6:15 a.m. Dawn broke over Atlanta. Soft pink light filtered through the hospital windows. Grant stood outside Malik's recovery room, watching through the glass. The boy was sitting up now, eating Jell-O from a small plastic cup. A nurse sat with him, talking gently, making him laugh. Grant's phone buzzed again. This time, he looked. A news alert from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. *** Billionaire Grant Holloway's secret son revealed at charity gala ***. The article had already been shared thousands of times. Comments ranged from outrage to disgust to a few, very few, expressing hope that he'd do the right thing. His publicist had stopped calling. His lawyer left a voicemail, **, we need to discuss next steps. Call me. **. Grant deleted it. He pushed open the door to Malik's room. The boy looked up. Tensed. It's okay, the nurse said gently. He's just here to visit. She excused herself, leaving them alone. Grant sat in the chair beside the bed. Didn't know what to say. How do you talk to a child you abandoned? My mama's going to be okay, Malik said quietly. Yes, Grant said. She is. Because of you. Grant hesitated. Because of a lot of people. Malik studied him with those dark eyes, Grant's eyes. Are you really my dad? The question was so simple. So devastating. Yes, Grant said. His voice broke. I am. Malik was quiet for a moment. Then, why didn't you want me? Grant felt like he'd been punched. It wasn't, he stopped. Started again. It wasn't about wanting you. It was about me being scared. And selfish. And wrong. Are you still scared? Grant looked at his son. At this small, brave boy who'd walked into a room full of people who hated him just to save his mother. Yes, Grant admitted. I'm terrified. Why? Because I don't know how to be a father. Malik tilted his head. My teacher says you learn by doing. Despite everything, Grant almost smiled. Your teacher sounds smart. She is. Malik took another bite of Jell-O. Then, will you stay? The question hung in the air. Grant thought about the life he'd built. The empire. The reputation. The control. All of it crumbling. And realized he didn't care. Yes, he said. If you'll let me, I'll stay. Malik considered this. Then nodded. Okay. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't absolution. But it was a start. 7 years of lies. 1 night of truth. A child who's willing to give his father a chance he doesn't deserve. What would you do in Malik's position? Would you let him stay? Or tell him to leave? Drop your answer below, because this ending isn't written yet. 3 weeks later. Ariel Carter sat in a wheelchair outside Grady Memorial Hospital, discharge papers in her lap. The morning sun was warm on her face. She looked healthier now, color in her cheeks, clarity in her eyes. The transplant had taken. Against all odds. Malik stood beside her, holding a small backpack with their belongings. Not much. Just clothes and a few books. But it was theirs. Grant pulled up in a black sedan, not the usual town car with a driver, just him behind the wheel. He got out, walked around, opened the passenger door. Ready? He asked. Ariel looked at him for a long moment. Then nodded. Ready. Malik helped his mother into the car while Grant folded the wheelchair. They drove in silence through Atlanta's morning traffic. Not toward the penthouse Grant used to call home. Not toward the mansion in Buckhead he'd shared with Naomi. Toward a modest 3-bedroom house in East Atlanta. Nothing fancy. Just clean. Safe. Theirs. Grant had bought it 2 weeks ago. Put it in Ariel's name. Set up a trust for Malik's education. Not out of guilt, though there was plenty of that. Out of responsibility. This is it, Grant said, pulling into the driveway. Malik's eyes went wide. This is ours. Yes, Ariel said softly. They got out. Grant carried their bags to the door. Unlocked it. Inside, the house was furnished simply, couch, table, beds. Everything new. Everything waiting. I know it's not much, Grant started. It's perfect, Ariel said. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Grant nodded, throat tight. Malik ran through the house, opening doors, laughing with joy at having his own room. Grant and Ariel stood in the living room. What happens now? She asked. I don't know, Grant admitted. I resigned from the foundation board. Lost most of my business partnerships. My marriage is, he trailed off. Naomi moved out last week. Ariel's expression softened. I'm sorry. Don't be. I earned it. Still. They were quiet for a moment. I'm not expecting anything, Grant said finally. From you. From Malik. I want to be here. If you'll let me. Once a week, Ariel said. Grant looked up. What? You can visit once a week. Sundays. Take Malik to the park or for lunch or whatever. Her voice was firm but not unkind. But Grant? If you do this, you show up. Every week. Not when it's convenient. Not when you feel guilty. Every week. Grant nodded. I will. And if you miss one Sunday without a damn good reason, you're done. Do you understand? Yes. Because he's 7 years old and he's already been abandoned once. I won't let you do it again. I won't. Ariel studied his face, searching for something. Finally, she nodded. Okay. Malik ran back into the room. There's a tree in the backyard, he said breathlessly. Can we get a swing? Grant smiled, a real smile, not the practiced one from boardrooms. Yeah, he said. We can get a swing. 2 months later, Grant stood in the backyard on a Sunday afternoon, pushing Malik on the new swing. Higher! Higher! The boys' laughter echoed through the trees. Inside, Ariel watched from the kitchen window. She didn't trust Grant. Not yet. But he'd shown up. Every Sunday for 8 weeks. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they didn't. But he showed up. And maybe that was enough. For now. Grant's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Naomi, * divorce papers are ready. Can we meet this week to sign? * he typed back, * yes. Thursday work, * Thursday's fine. How's Malik? * Grant looked at his son, soaring through the air, fearless. * is good. Really good at * a pause. Then, * I'm glad. You're doing the right thing, Grant at * he stared at the message. Doing the right thing. It had cost him everything. His marriage. His reputation. His empire. But standing here, watching his son laugh, Grant realized something. He'd spent 4 to 6 years building a life everyone admired. And 0 years building a life that mattered. Higher! Malik shouted. Grant pushed harder. And for the first time in 7 years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Some people think power protects them forever. That money can bury the past. That control means never having to face the truth. But truth has a way of showing up when you least expect it. Often in the hands of someone you dismissed. Someone you told to get out of here. And when it does, you have 2 choices, keep pretending. Or finally, painfully, do the right thing. Grant Holloway lost everything that mattered to him in one night. His reputation. His marriage. His empire. But he gained something he'd never had, a son who knew his name. A chance to be the father he should have been. A life that might actually mean something. Not perfect. Not forgiven. But real. That if this story made you feel something, anger, hope, conflict, you're not alone. These stories don't have easy answers. They just have choices. And consequences. **** subscribe, because the next story might feel uncomfortably close to home. That ********, and if you wouldn't have forgiven Grant, say it in the comments. That *******, we're listening. That *****, because the hardest question isn't whether he deserved a second chance. That *****, it's whether you would have given him one.